Hey, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Saturday morning, my friend, and you are listening to Light Talk.
Good morning. This is Stan coming to you from Gainesville, which is in Florida. And today we are discussing equipment wars, the right lens to capture my show. I need a good education. Is it too late to apply for summer stock? And surviving academia, all on Light Talk.
And this is David coming to you from the beautiful Belmont Shore neighborhood of Long Beach, California. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers. Yeah.
I have a simple question for you.
What?
Every week you talk about the
beautiful
Belmont Shores of Long Beach.
Yes.
Why is it beautiful? Give me one reason it's beautiful.
Because we have palm trees everywhere, and the sunsets are awesome, and the water is awesome. And I could see ships out there carrying, all my stuff from China. So I don't know how much more beautiful you can get than that.
But I did want to say something about Belmont Shores, something about the beauty of it, because that was really Steve's question. When I went to visit David, I've never really spent much time except in Hawaii on a westerly facing beach. And so what was interesting is when the sun was going down, it was glinting. The Atlantic doesn't work that way, right? You get the sunrise on the Atlantic. In Hawaii, it's not quite due west, depending on where you go. So the sun was glinting on the waves, and I was so fascinated by these little reflections on the crests of the waves from the sun that I was staring at it like all the time I was sitting there. And you know what it did to me? I really did find it quite beautiful and fascinating. It was dancing glints across the water, but it burned my retina. It took like a week for it to get better. So you shouldn't really be staring at the beauty too closely.
Especially after you've taken mescaline. So that's, you were coming down.
That would have
from
made
the
it better.
high.
That might have made it better.
So that's the problem. Okay.
That's what I tell directors all the time when I light a show. Don't stare at the beauty too long.
There's your show title. Don't stare at the beauty too long.
Well, we actually have a sponsor that talks about that today. So there you go.
Okay.
And so, hey, everyone, welcome to episode 253. And you know what that means, Stan?
Yeah, something about like an anniversary.
Well, no. How many episodes are we from our fifth anniversary show?
I
don't even know if it's
that
fifth or sixth. That's all.
You thinking I can do arithmetic or something?
Well, it's 52 weeks at a year, and then you.
How many episodes are we from cancellation?
Oh, we've passed that. That's
Yeah,
way.
When's the network going to pull the plug?
We've gotten it canceled. We just ignore the.
I was the George Harrison of Light Talk when I quit and then came back the next
right.
day.
There you go. Well, you didn't come back the next day. It took you about
No, that's
5
true.
months.
It took a few months.
Yeah. But anyway, that being said, you didn't officially quit. We want to start rumors amongst our base.
No, that's true.
We're totally honest to everybody.
I have stock in this show.
He does have stock, man. And if it goes down, it's going down with the rest of it. But that's a whole other story.
My favorite, my quote of the week is?
Never going to get a show done today.
Okay, so we're not going to get a show done because you got me today.
Go ahead. What's your quota?
So reputations,
Quote.
They go up like the escalator or the staircase, and they come down like the elevator.
Yeah, right. Did you say this in the last episode we did with you?
No, I don't think so. If
or
I
maybe
did edit that
you
out.
and I talked about it. Okay.
We talked about
I
it.
think you and I talked about that. Yeah,
personally in our prep sessions.
All right, the preps in our research session. So anyway, welcome everyone, 253. That means we're just 7 episodes from our 5th anniversary show. Now, it is 5 years, right? So it's the 5th anniversary, not the 6th anniversary. It's not the beginning
Wait,
of the
we're
6th
finishing the
anniversary.
5th year, or we're going into the 6th
year. We're going into the 6th year, yes.
You got to be kidding.
No, but listen, we have a lot of plans for that one, and we are going to announce a very special guest for that show. So
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady is doing our show.
Tom Brady.
He can't do Regis and Kathy Lee because I think both of them are dead.
I think Regis has died.
Yes, but he can do the Lumen Brothers. So we're going to ask Tom Brady, but we do have a backup, and I think that everyone's going to really enjoy it, and it's going to be quite timely because guess what's coming up in 2 weeks?
The Super Bowl without Tom Brady.
Without Tom Brady. And guess where the Super Bowl is this year? In my backyard. And guess how much the typical ticket for the Super Bowl is? This just came out. I saw it.
Too much.
Well, just take a wild guess.
Is it more than a console?
Well, it depends on the console. Come on. Okay, $10,000 a ticket. That's the typical Super Bowl ticket. $10,000. Those are the cheap ones. Those are the seats that you can't see anything. You're up all the way in the top, right? You're sitting next to the restrooms, right? No, this is not. These are not good seats. $10,000.
America is a tale of two cities.
Do you know what their excuse is? Well, it's in LA, and most people who are going to the game already live in LA, so they don't have all the expenses of an airplane ticket or the or hotel, so they have extra.
Does baseball do that too? It's like the World Series.
It's ridiculous. It's come on, people can't afford to go.
I'm so out of touch.
Anyway, so we have some exciting plans, and so we'll see what happens. Okay, so tune in. That will be episode 260 in 7 weeks. I will be returning from Helsinki by then. So I'll probably be frozen. I may be in the middle of my defrost. So, we may have to find someone. But anyway, on with the show. Steve has the first question.
Yes, it comes from Kat in Detroit. And Kat writes, my school cannot keep up with the equipment wars. We just don't have the money. How often do you update equipment? And what are the factors that affect your decision to do so? I've got stuff that's 20 years old. We're just kind of cycling that out right now. It's hard if the equipment is in reasonable shape and it's working. We're in the theater. We're not in the the engineering department or the law school. So we have to stretch things out. I think though with the equipment wars, you have a good point. I think if you get caught up in that, you never have the right equipment. And you're always chasing something else. It's like walking down the street in New York. You walk past a store and you see a piece of electronic gear for $20, and you keep walking because you think you're going to find it for $19 or $18 on further down the street. It's difficult. It is difficult. So chasing equipment, I don't think is a terribly good idea. If you don't have a lot of funding, there's a way you can get around that. And I think you take a look at renting, because sometimes you'll have you have a little money. Maybe you've got $100 to rent something, but you don't have $1,200 to buy it. You can always talk to other theaters. You can talk to other schools. You can talk to production houses about possibly borrowing a piece of equipment. They're not going to send you 12 moving lights, but they might let you borrow something out of their inventory that's a little bit older, that isn't necessarily in high demand anymore. If you're worried about your students kind of falling off the edge here and not getting exposed to the equipment, get on the phone right now and call up these different companies. Call up Martin, call up Elation or ETC or Strand or Verilight, Hog. You pick it. Call them up and ask for a demo. Maybe ask for a workshop. Maybe you and another school go in together and you've got all of a sudden 10 or 12 students in the room, and it makes it a lot more attractive for that company to come in and spend half a day with you doing a demo as opposed to showing it just to 2 students. And of course, you always can slowly add something if you feel really passionately about it. Maybe you can afford 2 moving lights. Maybe you can afford something new for your psych. You don't have to buy a full system. You don't have to buy dozens and dozens of lights. You start with something small. Your two LED Lecos, they become your specials, and you move them around the stage. So there's a lot you can do, and there's a lot of education a student can get from one piece of equipment. It doesn't have to be a lot. What about you guys? You've faced this in the past.
Steve, you once told me that you guys have this special fund just for refreshing lighting equipment every year. Is that still true?
That is true.
That is so nice. I'm telling you, very few schools have that. And
well, it's gotten harder with the pandemic, and it's gotten harder with budget cuts. But we do set aside a percentage of our budget. You know, it's like anything else. It's amazing. You know, and I don't mean to be all kind of uppity about it. And, you know, people need to stop saying, well, SMU is a rich school. You know, anybody can do it. If you had a computer lab in the engineering department, I guarantee you would have a budget set aside for repair and updating those computers. So, you know, I don't have $500,000 in the account, but I have some money in there. If we want to get something, we can get something. Now, if I went and said, I need 60 new movers, you know, the accountant would look at me and say, have you lost your mind? But, you know, a little money for a rainy day fund's not bad.
Unfortunately, there are a lot of schools out there, mine, for instance, that don't have money to refresh computer labs, that don't have money we can steal from elsewhere. So Kat may be working in a school like that. You know, it sounds like it because she's saying we don't have the money. And that is usually what I hear from administrators when I ask for new equipment. I agree with you, Steve, that you don't need a lot of equipment to learn how to be a lighting designer and to teach lighting. So I don't know what to say about what type of equipment you should buy. How often do you update equipment? If there's still light coming out of it and it's safe, we keep it.
Well, you bring up a good point. There's nothing worse in teaching than to hear a student say, if I only had 12 36 degrees, I could do the show. Well, you've only got 10. You know,
do the show.
You've only got 10. So do the show, and you've got to make some choices, and they're going to be unpleasant. Or, you know, I remember hearing that when I was in school. You know, gee, the theater only has 60 dimmers. If I had 96, if I could just have a 96-way rack, what I could do. Well, yeah, you could, but you don't. So you got 60.
I don't want to get into a thing about UF and my school and this. And I want to, if I stick to the question a little bit, I think David, well, I saw one short story, but when I came to UF, they had a lot of old equipment, and we were doing this production of Amadeus, and they were the design. We have a very large proscenium with a huge apron, and the apron's like 70 feet wide, and they were going to use every inch of the theater. And I had a lot of junk, frankly. And people said, how are you going to do this? How are you going to light this? And I said, well, how many lights do we have? Oh, well, a couple 100 or 200 and a half, whatever it is. And I said, they all put out light? And I said, they all spit out light. I don't care what the quality of the thing is. If light, like David said, if light comes out of it, it's my job to be creative with it. And I said, do I have at least enough of that to cover the real estate? And yeah, but so that's the thing. I agree with David and Steve on all of this. But I might add, so she says, Kat, I'm assuming is a fine young woman. My school, I don't know the school. We don't know if it's a high school or a college or where it is. And the equipment war, Steve's point about the shopping thing, it's like keeping up with the Joneses. I would just let that go right away. We don't have the money. Okay. But then she asked, how do you update equipment and what are the factors that affect your decision? So I think having that fund, whatever size it is that Steve is talking about, is a good one. And also the other comment about connecting to manufacturers, I think there's a way that Steve is pointing out to build some relationships with either, if you're a high school, community theaters in the area, right? We do that here. We share with the Hippodrome. The Hippodrome shares with us. There's a Roadhouse in the area to sort of do that rather than just keep buying. And that's sort of an unsustainable kind of thing. If it still puts out light, it's still a usable device. And sometimes for certain systems, I want the junky light. I want the one with the bad refraction that creates kind of weird effects. You know, so just figure out where to use the old stuff, and then take it easy. Just take it slow. You know, don't put that pressure on yourself.
Okay. Henry in Kansas asks, I have another year to finish my Associate of Arts degree. What should I look for in a BA program as I want to be a lighting designer? Well, okay. There are a few questions I must ask first. I think the big question would be, are you expecting to continue your education into graduate school? Or are you going to go straight into the profession after you finish your undergraduate degree? And here's why. There's a big debate in academia. It's been around for as long as I've been around about what prepares a student best for grad school, a BA program or a BFA program. And everyone has good points. There's no right or wrong here, but I can just tell you how I feel about it. And that would, knowing that you're going to be going to grad school, I would definitely say BA program. And I think you probably are because you already said BA program. You don't mention a BFA. And I think that the BA program is a great program because it teaches you how to think. It gives you a much broader background in the arts and humanities and sciences and everything, actually, which you need to know in order to be a designer. And you can learn all the technical stuff in grad school. Now, if you're going to a BA program, yes, absolutely, you're going to be taking a lot of classes that are outside of the theater, which is fine. It's terrific. And then you're going to be auditioning for grad programs. And everyone who I pretty much respect and who are graduate teachers, when they see a really sharp student and that student has a BA degree, they will excuse any sort of lack of practical experience as being electricians, things like that. Because let's be honest, a lot of these schools out there, and all the ERTA schools now are just like holding their ears. They basically have grad programs to service their undergraduate programs. They use grad students as cheap labor. And what a lot of those teachers are doing is they're looking for good students, but they're also looking for students with a lot of experience, someone who they don't have to train how to be an electrician, who can walk in and do a $70,000 job for $8,000 or $10,000 a year. That's basically what they're looking for, right? So not all schools are like that, but a lot of schools are, and you need to really be careful about that. So yeah, I think that the BA program is the way to go. Okay, what should you look for? First of all, you need to look for a program that will give you opportunity to basically study a wide range of art and science and humanities. I think that's really super important. Take psychology, take architecture, take whatever you want, but it does not have to be theater. So that's what I would look for.
Let me say, I agree with David. I was actually looking at my list of people who kind of sparked my interest in applications this year, and all of them have a BA degree. The other thing, and David is very clear about this, but let me be even clearer. In supporting your interests, you need to ask that theater program, do they allow undergraduates to design? If you go to a school where undergraduates only do technology, I think I'd look long and hard at that. You don't have to design, half a dozen shows, but it would be nice to do one or two while you were there to see if it's something that even really interests you.
To Steve's point about you want to ask if the undergraduates design, and I think if you're focused on design and design exclusively, that's really important because then you'd be frustrated. I used to say this. I used to teach in an undergraduate only program, and sometimes the students would come with their parents, and I was in a little town in 3 hours west of Omaha, Nebraska. And the big school in Nebraska was the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. And I was at a smaller program. And sometimes the students would come through and they would say, well, should I come here, for my bachelor's degree, or should I go to UNL for my bachelor's degree? And it was a really good question. And I said, well, it depends. Are you going to go to grad school? And they didn't always know the answer. And I said, well, if you're going to go to grad school, you might be good in an undergraduate only program because you're going to get more attention. but you won't get exposed the same level of exposure that you would get in a grad school.
Every grad school's different. And, that's the next thing you may want to do. If you're expecting to go to grad school, call some of the grad schools you're interested in now and say, should I do a BA or a BFA? And I'm thinking about going to this school to finish off my 2 years, or that school. Is there a school that you could recommend that I would fit better into your program, or that I would be better prepared for your program? So I say go right to the end. If you know what grad school you want to go to, contact them.
Chang in Taiwan writes, I am starting to take photos of my design work. I have a 50 millimeter lens. What do you think should be my next purchase? I'm assuming she means lens. So I like this question, and I took some notes. First of all, I'm impressed that you have a 50 millimeter, and I'm assuming it's a prime lens. That means it doesn't zoom. But actually, I like to kind of throw out this fun little term that I like to use. I learned somewhere. You do have zoom with your 50 millimeter prime lens. It's called sneaker zoom. Move your feet, okay? So you can change your distance from the subject with your prime lens any closer, further. Get into it, use it. Now, if you were going to buy more lenses, stick with primes. There's less glass and there's less elements for the light to go through. And theater sometimes is very, very dim and very, very bright. There's quite a range of brightness. So prime lenses can be faster lenses. That's got to do with the size of the aperture. So I like prime lenses. Now, that doesn't mean these days things have changed. And I'm reading Jeff Ravitz and Jim Moody's book right now, and it's fantastic. So I really want to shout that out again. And if you're listening, I'm loving it. I'm on chapter 8. But the point is the cameras have much better sensors than they used to, the digital cameras. So you can deal with low light better. And the lenses are better, right? You can get lenses with anti-shake, so you can shoot slower. And there's such a range of stuff. But I think speed is important. So a 50 millimeter 1.8 is like $100. And 50 millimeter is what your eye sees, basically. So that's kind of a nice thing, but you got to use your sneakers. Now, the other thing I would say is two things to think about. Are the lenses autofocus? Do you use autofocus or do you focus manually? It's amazing what the cameras can do in terms of autofocus now, but they need a lot of light for autofocus. You got a dim situation, you may still have to flip over to manual focus. So that's something to think about, is the speed and whether or not you want autofocus, and whether the autofocus is two ways they work. Sometimes a lens has a motor in the lens, which means the lens is more expensive. And sometimes the lens does not have a motor in it. It uses the motor in the camera body. And so that's something to consider when you're looking at these that I would offer. And here's my last but most favorite part. Some of the best glass ever made was made a long time ago. So you don't necessarily have to go out and buy the newest thing. Start shopping on these used camera lens sites and buy some classic beauties, particular primes. My favorite lens of all time from my Nikon, it was made by a company called Chiron Precision. It's a 125 millimeter prime with a macro, but it's the sharp tack lens ever made for a Nikon. The guys who built it, they were Nikon engineers who went rogue in the 80s and opened their own company and built these lenses for aftermarket. And it's like a cult lens. It cost me $160. And it's still the sharpest lens I have. Now to focus it, there's no autofocus, there's no auto aperture. You got to know photography. You got to do it manually. And to focus it, it's like 2.5 turns. It's like turning the barrel of a tank, right? It's just built like, but I love it. And the pictures give you beautiful bokeh. And if you don't know what bokeh is, look it up. It's a Japanese word. Different lenses and different apertures give you different levels of blur in the background. So those are my thoughts. But I would say start shopping the used market. And particularly there are photographers, professionals who will buy a lens for a particular job. They'll use the lens and then they don't want it anymore. And they put it up for sale for like 20% off new.
So Ching, I'm here for you, man. I'm here for you. So when you start thinking about lenses, you got a 50. That's great. I think your next lens number 2, you need to take a look at where you're working. If you're working in a big proscenium and it's a big house that you're in and you're shooting from, then probably an 80 to 200 zoom. If you're working in a small theater, if you're working in like a storefront, something that seats, 50 people, 60 people, a little 50 by 50 black box, then I would say probably a 35 to 70 zoom, so that you can get that wide angle, or even a 20 to 35. But I do think a zoom is a good idea, and a 2.8 is more than enough to shoot in the theater. So think about a zoom, a wide angle, or something for standing back in the back of the auditorium and shooting in.
You are listening to Light Talk, and today Light Talk is sponsored by
Hail Mary Hills Seltzers.
Are you an annoying jerk? Can you feel the eye rolls from the stage director every time you open your mouth? Can you hear the groans every time you want to make a change to a light cue? What can you do to change the public perception that you are a putz? Well, it's much too late to bring coffee and donuts to the theater. That ship has sailed. It's time for desperate measures. If you really want to smooth things over and save your career at the same time, break out your credit card and make appropriate reparations by investing in a little diplomatic lubrication with Hail Mary Hills Hard Focus Seltzer, the career-saving seltzer. Hail Mary Hills Hard Focus Seltzers come in several unique flavors that you will find nowhere else, like Blackberry Blackout, Coconut Crossfade, Amperage Acai, and High Voltage Vanilla. For those of you who like it a little picosa, our creamy Cola de Fuego will leave a powerful impression on your colleagues for days. For special personality problems, we also offer special pharmaceutical-grade cocktail floaters for that extra little kick. For insane directors, try our zany Xanax Zebra. That'll quiet them down in no time. Or for that pain-in-the-ass stage manager who is late on every cue, try Caffeine Kryptonite. It'll wake them right up. Finally, for opening nights of particularly awful productions, our LSD elevator will make your crappy lighting design appear like fine theatrical art. Goodbye, lighting disaster. Hello, Tony Award. And all our seltzers come in a handy 23-pack, enough for the whole stage crew, because you have probably pissed off everyone in this theater, stage door security included. So try our Hail Mary Hills Hard Focus Seltzer. Pretty soon, all your colleagues won't care what you say or do. Get them completely blottoed, and they won't remember what pissed them off in the first place. Hail Mary Hills Hard Focus Seltzer, the career-saving seltzer. Now available at Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, and Amazon.com.
And now, back to Light Talk.
Well, the sound of those rabid ducks means that once again it's time for Let's Talk About. And today's Let's Talk About is all about surviving academia for theater artists. Okay, here's the deal. Okay, we're a bunch of crazy theater people, and none of us ever thought that we'd actually teach this stuff. I don't know about you guys, but I never thought I'd ever be a professor. I was a designer. I loved it. I loved working out there, and still do, by the way. And then all of a sudden, for one reason or another, this opportunity comes up, and we are totally not prepared for it. I don't know. Maybe we are. That's what our discussion's going to be about today, because academia can be fraught with terror and bad things that happen to you, horrible political issues. So what we do, because the three of us, we're all tenured professors. We've been in the academy for decades. We try to help out young faculty members who may not be prepared for this madness. So let's just open up the discussion. First of all, I'm just going to open up by asking Stan and Steve, did you guys ever thought you'd be a teacher, teaching this stuff when you were actually in school learning it?
I always enjoyed the academic. Well, I shouldn't say that. In high school, I was a terrible student. I had very low self-esteem. But once I sort of realized my self-esteem was improved, I really liked the environment of exploration, investigation. I really like to learn. I have an insatiable curiosity. You know that about me, David. So I always kind of felt comfortable in that. But I also felt that to teach something, you need to know something. And so you got to go out and do it as well as teach it. So I always maintain a professional sort of footprint. Half, one foot was in the academy, and the other foot was in the profession. And that is still true today. And so I think that makes you a credible teacher. So, I don't necessarily believe for everyone, those who can't, those who can do, and those who can't do teach. I think that's crap, right? There are a lot of amazing professors in the world. That's what, or scholars, academics that I have incredible respect for. But for me, I really did enjoy the freedom of experimentation, exploration, curiosity, learning. That was just wonderful for me. So I did enjoy that, but I didn't think I could do that exclusively.
And Steve, how about you? Did you have any idea that you'd be doing this?
All those classes I took in prison, maybe respect. No, I never thought I was going to teach. No, I was happy being a freelance person touring around the country. No, I didn't consider that until, I'd been working for some time. And actually, when I got married, I decided I'm not going to bother touring anymore. If I'm getting married, I'm going to come home at night. So I started looking into what it meant to be a teacher and, start exploring that a bit.
I'm with you, Steve. That's what happened to me. I never thought I'd ever teach. And I just, I was a consultant for Disney. One day I got a call from Joe from, you remember Joe from UMKC? Yeah. And he said, Dennis Parisi or someone like that was there. And he says, hey, you should hire David to be a guest teacher. And he said, hey, he says you'd be a good teacher. I said, I don't think so. I've never taught. But I did it and I fell in love with it. And but I constantly had my career and my teaching at the same time. One thing I can say is I don't think anyone should expect to go through graduate school and then start teaching immediately. I think any school that hires you to do that is not a very good school.
Well, I think you hear that at IRTA all the time. Yeah. It's like, I want to give back. I want to be a teacher.
Well, give back after 10, 15 years,
Yeah, I think a lot of that is just they're afraid to say, I want to be a Broadway designer and have 15 Tonys. So they throw this teaching line out. Also, I think it's something, a total speculation now. I mean, this could be just nuts. I think it's something they start telling their parents. When their parents say, you're going to get a degree in lighting design, what are you going to do? Well, I can teach. I think it's a defense mechanism also.
So guys, let's talk about surviving academia, getting in and surviving it, right? If you are fortunate enough to actually get a job, what would be the most important advice you would give someone from the theater going into a tenure track type of position?
Oh, I got this. Number one rule. Not everyone wants to hear your opinion. I mean, you need to say to yourself early in your career, is my dog in this fight? I remember I was sitting there and one of our faculty members had done 3 shows at the RSC. And he was pitching as an actor, he was pitching doing a 4th show. And the department chair said, well, I don't know. I mean, this is a lot. And, and I felt a need to speak up. And I said, well, it's the RSC. That's like obvious. It's obvious it's the RSC. And then the person looked at me, but very kind. And he went, you don't really have a dog in this fight.
Pick your battles.
Pick your battles, man. Not everyone wants your opinion, no matter how good you think it is. And rule number 2, you can have a hissy fit about once every 5 years. More than that, you're annoying. But about once, and maybe you can have one hissy fit a year as a designer. But as a faculty member, about once every 5 years, you're going to have a hissy fit.
That's crazy. That's scary because you never know about those other faculty members. They may just be looking for something to use against you.
I remember a faculty meeting in my first teaching position where this one person just was always being beat up. It's always being beat up. And, years go by and he achieves tenure. And we get to the faculty meeting and someone's starting to beat him up again. And he says, "This is my opinion. What do you think?" And I remember the faculty member looked at him and said, "I have tenure." You don't need to know what I think, crazy man.
So Stan, what's your bit of advice? What's your advice?
Here's what I've done, what I've learned. When I open my mouth, it's been rehearsed. I know exactly what I'm going to say. I know exactly why I'm saying it. I know how I'm saying it. And I know exactly what my intended outcome from saying it is. So if you just open your mouth, if you're quiet in a moment, you might be thought a fool. But if you just open your mouth with the first thing that comes to your mind, you might remove any doubt about the fact that you are a fool. So be strategic when you are going to open your mouth and know what you're going to say and why.
How many times have you been in a meeting? I mean, you've been there. You're in a meeting and there's a problem. There is a problem, no doubt about it. And then someone, holds up their hand and the chair says, "Yes, what do you want to contribute?" And they simply restate the problem. Yes, we know there's a problem.
That's what they
do.
Want
you
to
have
be
a
heard.
Solution to the problem?
That's a really good. And I had a chair once who used to say this: "Hey, listen, if you come to me with a problem, that's great. That's my job. It helps solve problems. But make sure you also come with a suggestion how to solve the problem."
Absolutely.
And that's you should always look at that, and also respect all your colleagues, especially the elder colleagues. Now I'm saying that being an elder colleague, it's true because I know so much about academia and I can help every single young faculty member, every probational faculty member here, even people who are just here part-time, I could help them. And I tell them from the very beginning, I say, "Hey, you need any help, just call me up or text me or whatever, and I will be happy to help you out."
Yeah, I would say to amplify your point, David, to not bond with your senior faculty is a rookie mistake. You made me think of something important, David, that I think that just thought of this, that there's a generational difference. There used to be like an executive bathroom club, like the senior faculty felt like other people had to like kowtow to them or kiss their ring or pay dues. I don't know how much that's true anymore. I know that our generation doesn't, at least the people that I know, like you guys in my circle, that we don't do that. It's not that. I think that is a dead idea that when you hire somebody, we want you to succeed. You hire them because you think they're terrific, right? So we're committed to that. When somebody doesn't succeed, it's not just their failure, it's our failure. We made a bad judgment by hiring them and we didn't help them along. So I think that's a generational shift that is different from Kissinger's age.
What Stan has said is really interesting because it's true. I think we have changed for young faculty members, especially from the theater, because, they're not used to being in this terribly politically, even more political than the theater. They're used to community. And I think that it's really important that the senior faculty really embraces the junior faculty and helps them along.
I do think it's different. I think it's different in the theater. I think the faculty club, the old boy network, all having a key to the executive bathroom, I think that might be true in the history department because these people are working independently of each other. I think when you move into the arts building, when you move into theater, it is based on community, as you say, and it's based on collaboration and it's building relationships and it's 4 or 5 people building a show as opposed to working by yourself. And there can be merits for that too. Working by yourself in the history of the department, producing the next brilliant paper or book or whatever on some aspect of history. You're not reliant upon the team. You're reliant upon yourself.
I think another bit of advice that I would highly recommend to young faculty members is to make sure you look at those tenure requirements. Matter of fact, you should have done that before you applied for the job. To make sure that you're going to be able to continue your work while you are teaching classes, because it could be a catch-22. And unfortunately, there are still schools out there that make it somewhat impossible, nearly impossible, to get your creative work done, which is a requirement in most tenure dossiers, and to have significant work. They're not talking about, working for the Garage Theater, down in Los Angeles. They're talking about regional theater companies and opera companies and, and broadcasting that are like at least Class B, sometimes international to get a full professor. So you should look at that and make sure that you have the freedom, that the school will give you the freedom to pursue this and still be able to be a teacher at that school.
It's also not that difficult. It's just we don't do it because it's not something that we necessarily know how to do, because no one ever told us. It's not that terribly difficult to go to Fulbright either. And you can talk to your department chair and your dean about that also. I want to get a Fulbright. Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about what it's going to take. Maybe your department has a connection to a theater in Mexico or a theater in Germany, and they can help you. I mean, it's people think it's always crazy when I start talking about Fulbrights. It's just not part of our vocabulary, so we don't think about it. We think it's pure research, and it's not.
Okay, well, Steve has our last question of the day.
Greg in Texas wants to know, is it too late to apply for summer stock work? Yeah. Well, the Rocking Sounds alluded. No, it's not too late. Not too late. Now's the time. First of all, and I'll post this, but write this down, Greg. You're going to do a Google search here. It's going to be theaters and festivals ENTWORK. So theaters and festivals and work. And they're going to list every theater, summer stock theater and festival in North America. So there's a site that can direct you to, well over 100 summer stock theaters and festivals. And right now you need to be thinking about it though. Right now, probably in the next 60 days, I would think this is February 1st, we're recording. In the next 60 days, I think a lot of summer stocks will have set what they're doing. And certainly it doesn't hurt to make a pilgrimage to the Southeastern Theater Conference, SETC. And it probably doesn't hurt to make a pilgrimage to USITT. You can check with both those organizations, and they're going to tell you who's going to be there. By now, they know who's going to be there recruiting for their summer stock work. So, I think right now is a good time to be reaching out to them because it's on the agenda right now. Other things to look at, summer stock, most people think summer stock means plays and musicals. But summer stock can also be opera companies. It can be dance companies, something like the American Dance Festival or Jacob's Pillow. There's all kinds of work in the summer, and just tons of it.
Speaking of opera companies, I know of one particular famous opera company that's looking to hire 2 lighting assistants to assist the designer and this summer. So if anyone out there is interested, please contact me directly and I can lead you to that company.
When would the starting dates be?
The starting date is the beginning of June, and one of the positions goes into the second week of July, and the other position goes from the beginning of June into the first week of August.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a rep company. But yeah, now's the time to nail down those summer gigs. So the Rocking Sounds of the Luminoids tells us that once again you've spent another morning listening to Light Talk. You can hear our show on Spotify, iTunes, Google, YouTube, LiveDesignOnline.com, Amazon Prime Music, and just about every other podcast site out there. Check out our website on lighttalk.org for future guests, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
If you decide to litigate, the law firm of Flex, Flock, Flare, and Glare and their paralegal guy, Snoot, we'll delete what's left of our retirement funds because they're shrinking.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers, coming to you from Gainesville, Long Beach, and just left of the Chisholm Trail.
And be sure to join us next week when we chat about more useless things and explore the crazy insanity in our industry.
Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
And thanks once again to the voice of Light Talk, Miss Lori Cooper. So we'll see you all next week. Bye-bye from Light Talk.
See you around.
Doodles.
Light Talk.